This wasn't just a single gunshot wound to the chest and run away. Somebody wanted her dead.
A cold-hearted execution.
You see this type of stuff on TV, not real-life drama.
A bizarre mystery with multiple suspects.
He said they're actually having a three-way sexual relationship.
In homicides, it's not uncommon for an affair, lust, to be the motivator to cause somebody to commit murder.
The truth will be revealed.
He was my best friend for a long time.
It just doesn't sit right. You know there's more to the story.
Oh my God.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Yakima, Washington, a beautiful valley full of lush farmland in the heart of the state.
Yakima Valley is a great place. We have over 300 days of sunshine a year. We can go skiing in the winter, and we go water skiing throughout the summer in the local lakes.
99% of the population are wonderful, genuine people.
We have our everyday break-ins, burglaries, thefts, quite common. But most of the time, it's a pretty safe place to be.
But on a quiet evening, the tranquility of this rural valley is shattered forever.
That night, I was working graveyard shift patrol. 911 call came in about 8:28 in the evening.
Sheriff's office.
Hi, ma'am. This is Scott Sunford.
The person who was calling was concerned because he had received several alarm trips from the house during the day and hadn't been able to get hold of his wife.
Okay, did somebody break into the residence?
I don't know. I've been out of town and I haven't been able to get a hold of the wife, so I was just hoping somebody can come meet me out there. Probably nothing, but I would feel better.
Okay. All right, we'll get someone out there.
The house that we were responding to was on a very long road. No street lights. The houses are set back a little bit. So I pull to the left of Mr. Sunford, and he has his door open of his car, and I can see that he has a gun by his side. He has a spotlight on, and I'm trying to figure out why he set this way, almost tactically like a police officer would. I don't know. Maybe he's watching TV and he just sees this is how cops stand. And I asked him, did you go inside and look? He says, no, I don't know what's in there. I don't want to get hurt. So we decided that we're gonna go ahead and make an entry into this house. I have my duty pistol drawn. I'm in the low ready, and I'm what they call cutting the pie, and just working the angles of the door, protecting myself. I open the door, and it's dark, but I can see through ambient light. And I turn to the right to go down the hallway, maybe about 7 feet. And I saw that there's a body laying on the ground. I can see the bullet casings to her left. And as I peer over her body, I'm looking into the bedroom, and I can see more bullet casings on the ground. And looking down at her, it's obvious to me that she's dead.
The woman is 30-year-old Desiree Sunford.
Desiree was a very well-liked school teacher. She had a lot of friends, loved by her family, was not known to get in any trouble whatsoever. Just a good-natured human being.
Scott and Desiree Sunford were married in 2003. He worked at the local military training center here in Yakima County. They were into motorcycles. They enjoyed outdoor activity.
Heading up the investigation into Desiree Sunford's murder is veteran detective Dave Johnson.
Any homicide is a big puzzle. Who has the means and who has the motive to kill this individual? Who has what to gain?
The first order of business, examining the body to try and determine time of death.
Based on lividity, which is the pooling of the blood in the body, rigor mortis, which is the hardening of the muscles, Desiree had been dead anywhere between 12 and 18 hours. That gives us a place to start on our timeline. So I arrived there at 9:30 in the evening. It's going to put that timeline sometime between 9 o'clock that morning and 3:30 in the morning.
Having established a window of death, detectives will now need to unravel the last 24 hours of Desiree's life to catch her killer.
From the collection of the evidence at the scene, the shell casings, and then the autopsy, she was shot 9 times.
It was obvious that she had tried to crawl away. From experience, that when somebody's shot at numerous times like that, there was an intent to kill that person. Somebody wanted her dead. This wasn't just a single gunshot wound to the chest and run away.
Detectives survey the crime scene, looking for more evidence.
We did find a bloody footprint of a boot that had been left there at the scene. Whoever committed this crime had stepped in the blood and then walked out. We were able to determine what type of boot that was, the size, 12 to 14. We're looking at a fair-sized individual with a large shoe. During the processing of the crime scene, we were able to recover her cell phone. We know she was alive at 10:30 the night before when she's talking to her mom. And we know that the alarm went off around 3:30 that morning. So it's starting to give us a timeline of what kind of activity is going on. It gives us an indication that they broke into the home, the alarm goes off, she wakes up. She got up to find out why the alarms were going off at 3:30 in the morning. Sees who it is, turns to run, and then she was shot.
Detectives learned that the Sunford residence had been burglarized a few weeks earlier. The thief stole their laptop computer, jewelry, and a jewelry box.
The back door of the house was broken into. Scott Sunford had boarded it up, and it appears that they had broke back into the same place as the last burglary.
The first person detectives question is Desiree's husband, Scott Sunford.
We disarmed him. We took his gun from him for obvious reasons. He was very proud of that gun. He told us where he had got it, and it's quite interesting how he wanted to have a conversation about this handgun, which, hey man, do you remember we just told you your wife is dead in the house? I mean, and you want to talk about this handgun you've got. Just odd, completely odd.
He just lost his wife of 10 years. And he didn't ask what happened. He didn't ask how she died. He didn't ask, did she suffer, or anything that we call normal responses.
So when someone is informed that, somebody that they know or has been involved with is viciously murdered, you're obviously looking to see what their reaction may be. You want to see, is it socially acceptable? Is it something that seems fitting with the situation at hand, or does it not seem to match? These are all very important reactions and all mean different things.
Scott explains that he had been away in the Tri-Cities for a funeral, an hour and a half away.
When was the last time that you actually talked to her on the phone?
The last time I talked to her was at the funeral service.
On Saturday?
Yeah.
So you talked to her yesterday evening, and did she indicate that anything was wrong or everything seemed okay?
No, it was fine. Yeah, it was just a quick, hi, yeah, it looks like I'm gonna stay. It's going kind of long. Love you. Talk to you soon. See you tomorrow,
When the alarm had gone off that Sunday morning, and he's notified through the alarm company, what he told us, it didn't seem to bother him. He figured it was Desiree getting up, letting the dog out, or not setting the alarm right, and so it wasn't a big concern.
He didn't start to worry until later that day, on the drive home.
The alarm system was set to arm stay, meaning that she's at home, so she should be home. So why isn't she answering me? And that scared me. And I headed to the house, and I pulled down the driveway. And I stayed there. I kept waiting. I couldn't go in. I didn't know what the hell to do.
And the question is, why didn't he go in? Why wouldn't he have gone in?
He's a combat veteran, armed with a .45, 6'4", 250 pounds. You would think if a man, a husband's there and he thinks his family's in trouble, he'd go through fire.
So I felt that kind of threw a flag, gave me a flag. This isn't right. This isn't normal.
Suspicious of his story, detectives take Scott down to the station for further questioning.
He's put in one of our 2 interview rooms. And while he's sitting there alone in the room, he's trying to deep breathe. He's talking to himself. You know, pull yourself together, don't cry. Like he's trying to psych himself up, getting ready for the hard questions that's going to be asked of him.
I've been a police officer 28, 29 years, and this was one of the strangest reactions I have ever seen from anybody.
Given that Desiree had been killed sometime between Saturday night and Sunday morning, detectives asked Scott for a detailed account of his whereabouts that weekend.
I left the house at probably 8:30. I went down to the Tri-Cities. I went to the service, and from that point on, I was with my dad and grandpa.
He spent the afternoon there with relatives after the funeral, and then he called Desiree and said, because of the weather, I'm going to stay here, spend the night, and I'll come home Sunday. During the interview, Scott did say that instead of staying with his dad, who lives down there, he did go to another home.
When you stayed at your dad's in Kennewick?
No, I actually stayed with a friend, but
What's the friend's name?
oh, her name's Paige. She's a mutual friend.
What time do you think you arrived at Paige's house?
I'd say 12:30-ish. She had already went and laid down, so I had to go wake her butt up.
Did Desiree know that you were going to Paige's?
I don't know, honestly.
Was it just a platonic friendship, or did you have a sexual relationship with Paige?
No, and honestly, we didn't even do anything. I was out on the couch anyways.
He said that he just spent the night there. He slept on her couch. That just didn't fit well with us. He's a grown man and she's a grown woman. That definitely raised red flags for the team.
In homicides, it's not uncommon for an affair, lust, to be the motivator to cause somebody to commit murder.
So is this his alibi? Is he out of town? Is he really out of town? We need to go find Paige.
After discovering Desiree Sunford shot to death in her home, investigators attempt to validate her husband's alibi by tracking down a woman by the name of Paige Blades.
Paige is a single mother. She was in the military at one point. Now she works at a food manufacturing company, lives a few miles from there. We told Paige that Desiree had been killed. That's why we're there, to find out Scott's activity. He said he was with Paige.
When was the last time that you saw Scott?
Last Saturday, 2 nights ago. He came, he had a funeral in Tri-Cities, and we met for dinner up there, and he ended up coming back here to spend the night.
So you met him in the Tri-Cities, and then you guys came back here together?
No, I met him and I came home and dropped my son off with his dad. Scott didn't come until about 11 o'clock, 11:30 that night.
Her statement was almost verbatim with Scott's statement that He came at a certain time, he left at a certain time. We thought she was very forthright, very honest with us.
Did he coach you at all about what to say when we came to talk to you?
No. He told me that he had been completely honest and that he hadn't hidden anything.
But there is one notable difference between Paige and Scott's stories.
What was the nature of your relationship with Scott?
He's my best friend.
Your best friends?
When we first met, I was drinking really a lot. He helped me sober up. He helped me with a lot of personal issues that I was going through. We became intimate probably later that first year.
He told us that it was just a friendship, that he slept on her couch, and she said, no, it's a lot more than that. We've been having an affair, and we do sleep with each other, and it was just not a casual relationship. Obviously, Scott was hiding something from us. We're wondering what other things he's hiding from us. They're just adding to those red flags from the initial time we first met Scott at the home, the night of the homicide.
Detectives confront Scott about his affair with Paige. But what Scott tells them next turns the case in an entirely new direction.
Well, Des didn't want me to say anything to anybody, but she kind of had mixed feelings. So at one point, her and Paige had a little thing going for a while there, a little experiment.
Okay, so it was Desiree and Paige who had the sexual relationship?
Yeah.
But not you and Paige? Or
we all did.
Sometimes you and Paige too?
Honestly, we all did.
Scott tells us they're actually having a three-way sexual relationship.
It's kind of one of those things where as long as we're going to do anything, we need to make sure we all are fine with doing anything.
So it's
everybody stays informed, avoid hard feelings.
Scott told us that they were just one happy big family and everybody got along, that there was no conflict going on at all. We just didn't buy it.
It just doesn't sit right. You know there's more to the story.
Whenever you have a case involving, let's say, open relationships or polyamorous swinging relationships, and you have someone saying, you know, it's consensual, everyone's on board with this, frequently, there's usually someone who's not. And when you have the one person who can maybe confirm if it's one or the other, when they end up dead, it looks more like the latter, a love triangle, and not a consensual open relationship.
Detectives aren't buying Scott Sunford's story, so they work to physically link him to the crime.
So we get another search warrant to go through the house and collect any boots, clothing that would maybe connect Scott to the crime scene. We're looking for boots that may match the footprint that we found at the scene. We compared the shoes that we recovered from Scott's residence to the bloody footprint that we found at the scene, and they were not a match. Scott's still on top on the list, but as far as physical evidence or even probable cause to take him into custody, we have nothing at this point.
The only other person of interest they have is the third wheel in Scott and Desiree's relationship, Paige Blades.
In this case, where there's so many different scenarios at play, it can be pretty complicated to narrow down a motive, and in some ways there might be multiple ones. You know, my read of this case is perhaps it's long on lies and short on facts. So how do you determine what individual motivations are and how they played out to, you know, murder?
Investigators dig into Desiree's cell phone messages, looking for insight into the nature of her relationship with Paige.
There was a series of text messages between Desiree and Paige. It seemed to be contradicting from what Scott had been telling us so far, with Desiree really aware and comfortable with their sexual encounters. Desiree writes, "You guys' comfort level with each other is much higher than I'm okay with." Paige returns a text, "I'm sure I could have sex with him. I just don't think about it because he's married." Desiree then says, "I'm just getting frustrated. You two chat and show pics. I tend to be left out." Over time, it's starting to bug me. And Paige says, "I try to stay out of the way as much as possible. I understand if you don't want me here."
But one text in particular reveals a possible motive for Paige to kill Desiree.
Paige said that if anything ever happened to Desiree and Scott needed a new wife, that Paige would be the new wife, that she would be waiting in the wings for him. They're not smoking guns, but they're certainly giving us a lot of red flags to look at. But we still don't have any physical evidence. We just have some text messages. That is not a crime. This is a motive. Why is Desiree killed? If Scott and Paige want to continue their lives, the motivation would be get rid of Desiree.
Investigators are zeroing in on Scott and Paige as the prime suspects in Desiree Sunford's murder.
We're not sure who the dominant individual is in this relationship. Is it Scott manipulating Paige, or is it Paige manipulating Scott? It could go either way at this point in the investigation.
Then, they get a phone call that tips the balance towards Paige.
We get information through a tip that Paige is pregnant. That kind of puts a new twist in the situation. Okay, whose baby is it? Is it Scott's? Is Paige more involved in it? She wants Scott all to herself. Did she have something to do with Desiree's death?
It's possible that, Paige is a strong suspect. She's the other woman. She may present as a femme fatale character, somebody who's using her sexuality or her seductive appeal to be able to manipulate others in terms of getting what she wants. That could be love, that could be money, that could be power.
As we look at Paige's phone records, we cannot put her anywhere near the Sunford home the night of the homicide. So as far as we can tell, she's not the killer itself, but that doesn't eliminate that she may know more than what she's telling us or directing someone to do it for her.
Gut feeling tells me Paige didn't reveal everything. I think there's more to this than meets the eye.
While investigators suspect that Scott and Paige conspired to kill Desiree, they don't have the evidence to prove it.
Well, the case is really basically cold. At this point in the investigation, we're starting to be a little frustrated. We all believe that Scott is involved. We believe that Paige may be involved, but we have no hard evidence. The families that are involved also get frustrated with us. They're calling us sometimes daily. What's going on with the case? They're hurting. They're grieving. They want somebody held accountable for their loved one's death. And we want to give that closure to them.
Over a year goes by with no leads, until detectives get an anonymous phone tip that turns the case around.
So 15 months later, we get a call that says Marty Grismer is the person who killed Desiree Sunford. Well, that doesn't help us a lot other than it gets us excited we got somebody to talk to.
This is the first time detectives have even heard the name Marty Grismer. They need to track down the source of the tip to find out more.
We work over several hours trying to figure out who made this phone call. We're able to track down this individual. It's actually Paige. This is a huge break if it's the right information. So we convince her to come to Yakima. We're okay. Paige, when did you find out about this? How do you know Marty?
Marty was my best friend for a long time.
Turns out Marty and Paige have a relationship. They're good friends. They're colleagues at work.
So why don't you just tell me in your own words what you've heard, how you heard it? I think that's as good a place as any.
Last week, I had Scott over And we were arguing, and I asked Marty to come over and get the baby. So he came over and he picked him up, and everything was fine. Scott was asleep.
At this time, Scott is now no longer interested in Paige. Scott's moved on and has another woman in his life.
I told him what was going on. And he asked me if I wanted him to take care of this new woman like he did Des. And I asked him what he was talking about.
And then it was shortly around that time that Marty confessed that he killed Desiree.
We had just found out about 3 weeks before the shooting that I was pregnant. Marty was one of the first people that I told. And apparently he decided that if the baby was Scott's, then Desiree would cause issues. Oh my God.
She explains that Marty will do anything for her to make sure she's happy. And if that means taking out Desiree, he'll do it. And he did.
It could also be that Marty is trying to frame Scott for this murder so that he and Paige can then get together. At some level, though, I think that there has to be a latent antisociality here. He can't just be infatuated. You have to be a person who's infatuated and willing to do something criminal in order to achieve your goal.
What was your reaction when he started telling you all this?
I was in shock. I just mostly just sat and listened. I asked him how he thought he was going to get away with it.
What did you say to that?
I said, I already have.
If the information Paige is giving them is true, it could be the break they've been looking for. But something doesn't sit right about Paige's story.
We were excited. We had a suspect. We had a confession, but we don't have anything to back it up. It was a strange motive with Marty wanting to take care of something and not getting anything in return. That was strange. So we're wondering how much Paige is trying to redirect this information. Is she directing us the wrong way again? Get the light off of her and Scott and threw Marty under the bus? I've never had a case like this take a twist like this before. You see this type of stuff on TV and fiction, not real life drama. But, you know, I've been doing this a long time, and sometimes you can't make this stuff up.
Paige Blades has just told police that Marty Grismer confessed to murdering Desiree Sunford in a misguided attempt to make her life better. But detectives aren't fully convinced.
We're getting a feeling that Paige is a kind of a worldly young lady. She's had many relationships. We're not sure how she manipulates everybody in these relationships. We have thoughts that, okay, is she trying to point us in a different direction, make Marty a scapegoat? We don't know.
But Paige says she can prove she's telling the truth.
So our next move is Paige agrees to wear a wire, and Paige tries to get Marty to tell us everything he knows on tape.
Have you given any thought to when or where the safest place to meet him might be?
We work together, but I would really hate to do it for it.
So it wouldn't, you guys are close enough to where you could call him and say, hey, meet me here, and it wouldn't be a big deal? You guys
pretty much, yeah.
There are risks for having someone wear a wire when engaging with someone who's a person of interest in a violent crime. And legally, it can be seen as entrapment. Police officers are experts at getting confessions, and even they have difficulty. So the average person even if they're very close to the person who committed the offense, is not necessarily going to be able to get a confession.
She was nervous. She was had some anxiety about it, but she was willing to do it and wanting to get this done. So we got the order and a meeting was set up.
What is the word that we are using that if something bad happens that you were going to say?
Avalanche.
Okay, now I know you want to fight. If something happens, I'm going to ask you to yell avalanche several times. I want you to curl and lean away from him, okay?
Where are you guys going to be sitting?
We will be in parking lot.
Okay.
Probably less than 20 yards away, 25 yards away.
We have a team of investigators up there. They're posted in different locations around this coffee shop to not only be able to hear what's going on, but also be able to observe what's going on. And if Marty does confess to the crime on tape, we'll take him into custody.
Saved you a spot? Give me a hug, asshole. Hey, I'm just saying, you didn't give me a hug last time I saw you. I was very hurt.
Paige is told that she can direct it a little bit, but we don't put anything into his mouth. It has to be all his statement.
Paige bides her time, looking for the right moment to bring up the murder.
Give me a minute of your time with nobody around. Because I know that you said that there was no evidence. So I'm just wondering for sure if there's nothing left.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have anything. You haven't done anything.
You can't freak me out, put me in full-on panic mode, and then just be like, nope, I don't know what you're talking about.
There's nothing anywhere, anything on anything. It's as clear as mud, right?
Marty's not being very cooperative. We're not sure if he's getting a second sense of something going on, but he does not talk about the murder. Paige tries to direct him, come on, tell us what happened. And he's basically saying, I don't know what you're talking about.
I've smoked a carton and a half since last Friday. That's from all this stress.
Yeah.
I've calmed down a lot, but I'm still kind of in panic mode.
Can't imagine why you're panicking.
Oh, yeah. Gee, I wonder.
You have so much stress in your life on there. I don't know why you have such a break.
Right, because I haven't had any sort of
with reality,
confusing dreams with reality. Is that what happened?
I think Marty feels that something's wrong. Why is she up here? Why does she want to talk about this? Marty does not confess to the crime. Marty doesn't give any indication that he's involved. And so we all go home with a failure. It takes an emotional toll on any investigator in a case like this.
These detectives go out there and they bust their butts, and their sole purpose is to get justice for the family. It's their job. Not only is it their job, but it's something they believe in. They want to solve this crime.
Yeah, we're back to square one. We're not sure what we think of Paige right now.
Then, they get a surprising phone call that leads to securing the first real piece of hard evidence in the entire investigation.
We received a call from the company where Marty worked. The office was being cleaned out where Marty worked, and a plastic bag of gun parts were found. And the company called us and said, you'd be interested to look at these. We drove there immediately, recovered those gun parts, and sent them off to the lab. We recovered the bullets from Desiree's body. Through the analysis of the crime lab, they were able to say those bullets came from that barrel. That would be called the smoking gun. That barrel's connected with Marty. Those bullets came from that barrel that came from Desiree. Those are the dots that you connect that Marty is our suspect.
Having discovered the murder weapon, detectives close in on Marty Grismer.
One team goes to the father's house. One team stands back while we contact Marty at his apartment. Marty is taken into custody voluntarily.
With the evidence stacked against him, detectives are hoping for a confession.
Your life is about ready to change, depending on the answers you're giving us.
I know that.
That's how serious this is.
And we start confronting him with the facts that we have from Paige about the homicide. He denies everything, but he's getting very, very nervous, even to the point where he said he's almost sick.
Have you ever discussed killing her with Paige?
No.
Did she ever ask you to kill Desiree Sunford?
No. No one's ever asked me to kill anyone. I wouldn't. I've never thrown a punch in anger in my life. I wouldn't kill anyone. It's not who I am.
Where the problem comes in is that Paige is saying that you are the one who shot and killed Desiree Sunford. She said that you confessed that to her. And she came in and gave a tape statement to that effect.
He does admit that he bought gun barrels from a certain company, which matched the barrel that we had, that we found at the workplace, but he had no confession, no detail regarding the homicide of Desiree Sunford.
Can't believe that. Just trying to ruin my life here. I mean, I haven't done anything wrong on it, but she's trying to engineer to set me up here, do something. I was saying to you that that killed someone under that. It makes me sick.
He was trying to give a little indication that maybe Paige was more involved. She had the issues with Scott. She had the issues with Desiree. Marty said that Paige borrowed his gun at about the time of the homicide.
Getting to the truth in this case is very hard. You have lies upon lies. You have many different deceptions at play here. And so you need to be able to look for additional forms of evidence that can rule in or rule out certain people of interest. You can't just take what people say at face value, because clearly we have some practiced liars in this scenario, people who are well versed at using deception to get what they want.
Unsure whether Marty Grismer is lying, they search his residences, hoping to find something to settle the question of who killed Desiree once and for all.
While we were doing the search warrant of Marty's dad's home, we found shoes that matched the size of the footprint we found at the crime scene in the blood.
And that's not the only piece of incriminating evidence they find.
Workers at the plant where Marty worked found items that were connected to the Sunford burglary before the homicide. They found the laptop computer belonging to the Sunfords, the jewelry box belonging to Desiree Sunford, and jewelry belonging to Desiree Sunford. We have the information that Paige told us. We have the gun. Ballistics matched that barrel to the slugs recovered from Desiree. We felt we had a case enough to arrest him.
Detectives charge Marty Grismer with the first-degree murder of Desiree Sunford.
And Marty just didn't really give any major emotion that he hadn't already given us. He was upset, he felt sick. We arrested without incident. He was transported back to Yakima and booked in the county jail.
Investigators now believe they know what happened to Desiree in the final 24 hours of her life.
She did talk to her mother about 10:30 that night. It had been Saturday night before she died. She basically sounded like she was taking care of the dogs, doing some last-minute schoolwork, and Scott was gone for the weekend and she was going to be uninterrupted. Based on what Marty told Paige, he left Moses Lake area about 1:30. It's about a 2-hour drive to Yakima. He arrives in Yakima, locates the key for the house that he knew about. opens up the door, sets off the alarm, walks in. Desiree wakes up. Confronts him. He fires his gun 9 times. Killing Desiree. And then he opens the rear door like to make it look like a burglary. Goes out the front door, and then he drives back to Moses Lake, burns his clothing, hides his gun parts later. If Marty had kept his mouth shut, he would have got away with it.
But one question still haunts detectives.
Was there any type of plan between Scott and Paige and Marty to commit this crime? Or was Marty working all by himself with his delusion of his relationship with Paige? We can only prove that Marty did it. We can only prove that Marty had the opportunity and the motive to do it and the items that was used in the crime.
Marty Grismer enters an Alford plea and is sentenced to 15 years in prison.
An Alford plea basically says the state has enough evidence to convict, but he's still denying any type of involvement, and he was sentenced to 15 years.
I don't think justice was fully served for the family. The prosecutor's office and the detectives did the absolute best they can with what they had. And I know the prosecutors and detectives are all sitting back thinking about this, knowing that there's another piece of that puzzle out there. There's something else that's out there. Somebody knows something.
May not be a great win, but I think for the family and for all the team involved, we got our guy. That is a win to put somebody in jail, that you can tell the family, this is who killed your daughter.
You can't bring back the memories. Her mother will never hold her again. Her mother will never get to talk to her again. Her mother will not be able to enjoy the possibility of grandchildren. So not only was Desiree Sunford's life cut short, but her family's life, in essence, was cut short as well.